Mara, it's fine. So yeah, vandaag zullen we share in grade 11 2022 paper to assist the grade 11 that was Palamanja 2024, because you all know ukuthi report yakho ya grade 11 is important to secure you a place ko varsity kapa ko college, wherever you want to go. They always require you to submit your grade 11 final report. So yeah, without further ado, let's begin before this device gives me problems again. So yeah, we'll start with 1.1. So in the 1.1 for this video, because my second device and I don't want this to be a very long video, because very long videos lose interest. So let's start with 1.1.1, and it says solve for x. So we have x squared plus 5x minus 6. This will give me 0. So this is simply grade 8 factorization here. How do you factorize a trinomial? You simply look for your last term factors of 6. My factors of 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. But now the one of these two must give me a positive 5 when I add, and it must give me a negative 6 when I multiply both. So the 3 and 3 will not work, because if it's plus 2 plus 3, it will give me the positive 5, but when I multiply the 2, they won't give me a negative. If they are both negative, and one of them is positive, negative 5. If they are both negatives, minus 5. So the 2 and 3 is obviously out. So now we have only 1 and 6. So now I must have my two brackets, and they must be equal to 0. So the reason you are factorizing is because of the zero factor theorem. I won't explain much if they are there. So now it's either this bracket must be 0 or this bracket must be 0. Whenever you're multiplying two things and your answer is 0, either the first bracket is 0 or the second bracket is 0. Or they may be both be 0, who knows? So now I simply say x and x. Now I write my two factors 1 and 6. So now the bigger number between these two always follows the sign of the middle term. So the biggest number here is 6. And then to get to minus 6, my minus 1, my 1 will be negative. So now I have minus 6, minus 1 plus 6 is 5. And then minus 1 times 6 is minus 6. So we have the correct factor. So now it's either this bracket is 0 or my second bracket is 0. And then now I simply transpose. X is where if you are negative this side and you cross to another country, you become positive. So x is 1. And if you are positive in this country, when you cross to the other country, you become a negative. So these are my two answers here. And where do you get your marks? So the first mark goes to your factors and 1, 1. So easy 3 marks. You don't have to do a lot of things. You just have to simply remember your grade 8 factorization. And then let's tackle 1.1.2. 1.1.2 RT still solving for x at 5x squared plus x minus 3 will give me 0, and I must correct to 2 decimal places. So whenever you see these brackets here, they say correct to 2 decimal places, you must smile, because that means you just simply use your calculator. But before you use your calculator, you must write down the quadratic formula. X equals minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So you don't have to know this formula by your head, because you can't go formula sheet. That's if they give you one. And then now I know which a standard trinomial here is ax squared plus bx plus c. So that's why they always encourage you to write it in standard form, because you can easily identify your a value, your b value, and your c value. So now whenever I substitute, I use brackets. So now I simply say negative b, what's my b value in brackets? my b value is 1, plus or minus the square root of my b value is still 1, but it's 1 squared minus 4. What's my a value? It's 5, and then my c value is minus 3, and I have to say all over 2. My a value is what? 5. And then here I'll get two answers. X is, so how do you type this in your calculator? I always start with the fraction, then need to minus, then type the rest as you see it. Heavy bracket 1 minus plus. We obviously can't type the plus or minus at the same time. We have to start with 1. So I always start with the plus. Then I say square root, type the rest. 1 squared minus 4a is 5. My b is minus 3. That my b and my c all over 2a. And then now my first answer is my first answer is 0,681 what. So now it's correct to do decimal places. Here you don't just write two decimal places, you must round off properly, correct? So after the 8 is a 1. Is the 1 powerful enough to change the 8? No. So it's 0,68, or then I go for my negative answer now. And then my second answer is x is negative 0,88. So again, after the 8 is a 1, it's not powerful enough to change the 8. Remember, it must be 5 or above to change your number. So now, where do you get your marks? Where do you get your marks? You get your marks for substituting, and obviously your two answers there. Easy 3 marks. Easy 3 marks. So now let's do 1.1.3, which is an inequality. Even matrix struggle with this one here. 1.1.3, but you don't have to. 2x minus 1 into x plus 3, and then this product must give me minus 3. So now here we simply distribute back to grade 8. So now Mina, I don't do the FOIL thing there. Obviously, if you have already mastered the FOILer, then yeah, keep it up. But me, I just say this term must multiply this bracket. So 2x must multiply x plus 3, and then the minus 1 must multiply this bracket, x plus 3, and then I simply I wela mulapo, and then the minus 3, when it crosses, it becomes positive 3, and xelu 0 because so now it's simple distribution, unlike a FOIL, which I found to be very confusing to most kids. I don't know why. So here it's simply distribution, it's simply tatse. So 2x times x will give me 2x squared, and then 2x times 3 will give me 6x minus times x, it's minus x, minus 1 times 3 is minus 3, and I still have my positive 3 hanging around there, waiting for its counterpart. So minus 3 plus 3 is obviously 0. These ones will give me 0. And then I have 2x squared because mahamba yedwa, and then the 6x minus x will obviously be plus 5x, which will be greater or equals to 0. So this is where it all falls apart. He foils properly, he transposes properly. Maramaga figure Avelat x is okay. Not even from here. Obviously from here you have to factorize, and I have a common element in both terms, which is x, so I can take out the x, then just have 2x plus 5, which is greater or equals to 0. So nina abaningi benu nimosha yini, because you treat this as a quadratic equation. You just solve for x. You simply say x is 0 or x is 5 over 2, negative 5 over 2. And you would be wrong. Obviously, from here to here, you'd be correct. But really, you won't get full marks because you're not solving for x. You're solving for inequalities. So what must you do when you get to this point? You simply say critical values, because it's what you're looking for before solving for an inequality. It's critical values. The critical values will be the 0 and the minus 5 over 2. 0 and minus 5 over 2. And then now everything in maths connects, right? This is a quadratic graph. So they're asking you, where is your graph? Negative. So this is a simple parabola, if you may call it. It is a parabola. And this is my x-axis. And what comes first? The negative here, the negative 5 over 2, and then this side 0. So now this inequality, they are saying, where is your graph greater or equals to 0? Meaning, where is your graph above the x-axis? So that obvious, I read my graphs going that way. So we are so above. Mara figure iba exactly on the x-axis. They say yeah deeper. Yeah deeper, which means it's below the x-axis. So this is where my graph is above the x-axis. Then it becomes below. And at 0, it's exactly at x. And after 0, it's now above the x-axis again. So now this will give you your two inequalities. So it's either your x is somewhere here or your x is somewhere here. And now, how do you write your inequalities? So you say x, is it greater than minus 5 over 2? Is your x here? No. It's less than. You must say less than. Wait. Why? Greater. Yeah. It's less or equals to minus 5 over 2. And then your second inequality will be x is, it's not less than, greater than, because it lies on the right hand side. So x is greater or equals to 0. How you find? So the only thing here you must remember, if it's greater or equal to, you must have the equal to element on your two inequalities as well. If you simply write this, then you are wrong. You've done all this work, Mara. Just because of a simple careless mistake, you won't get full marks. So remember to always include the equals to element if the original was an equals to. But if it was a just greater than, you would simply remove the equal to element as well. Understand? So let's do 1.1.4. Buka ngitshelanga nokuthi uthola ama-marks. So ama-marks wakho wathola after you FOIL or distribute 1 mark, standard form 1 mark, factors 1 mark, your answers 2 marks. That gives you 5 marks. Yeah. So let's do 1.1.4. The 1.1.4 at the root of x minus the root of x minus 5. That's the one. So here, whenever you see a root, you must remember you will have to square both sides. You will have to square both sides. You will have to square both sides. So now, but you must always isolate your root before you square. So now here we have two roots. How do we deal with such? Because if there was only one root, you would simply square the root of minus x plus 5 and the 1 and then solve for x. But now there's two roots. What do you do? Isolate one square, isolate the other square. So now let's isolate this root here. So I'm going to simply swap my two terms. The one is positive, jumps, becomes negative. So root x angitaka crossang. Kusabuyela la bekakhona root x minus 1 equals lo beka negative uyajump kuba positive. So it's simply the root of x plus 5. We've isolated one of the roots. Square both sides. Don't try to be a hero. Square both sides. So if I square both sides, I will have so the purpose of this squaring is to say this cancels this and you are left with x plus 5. So this side I have to write this thing out twice now. I have root of x minus 1 because that's what the square is telling me. So I can't just say ta because there's another term here and it's not under a square root. There's another term here, it's not under a square root. So it becomes root x minus 1. Yeah, this was squared. So now I say x times x, root x times root x, it becomes only x. And then I know I have to say negative root x, and it comes to minus 2 root x. And then negative 1 times negative 1 equals to positive 1. The x plus 5 here. So you see, you had two roots, you isolated one, you squared, you got rid of one. Now there's another one, which means you have to square again. Isolate that root and square. So let's isolate it. So now everything that's not a root acts. So the x acts, the 1 acts. So now I have minus 2. This is the x. Root x equals so the positive x jumps, it becomes negative. Wait, let me first write what was there before. There was a compound. So it's minus x. The 1 was positive, it becomes minus 1. So now I know that x minus x is simply 0. And I changed this. See, such careless mistakes are the ones that will cost you marks. So be very careful. Always review your work. Remember, I'm also human. I also make mistakes. So yeah. So these two will obviously be 0. And then minus 5 minus 1 is minus 6. And then here I have minus 2 root x. Isolate the square root x. Divide both sides by minus 2. Divide both sides by minus 2. The minus 2 cancels the minus 2. I have only root x left. And then negative 6 divided by negative 2. Simply 3. You've isolated your root. Square both sides. If I square both sides, my x would be 9. Easiness.